I was invited to speak at a club in Charlotte County earlier this week. It was a 15-minute, I was invited to give a speech like this for 15 minutes and answer questions for 15 minutes, and other candidates were going to be there, which is fine, anyone can go out and run. Charlie Christie's not going to be there, but some other candidates were. And I agreed to go and give the speech, and then we learned through the media, unfortunately, not even through the organizers, that the form had been changed, and in fact they had planned a round-robin debate style of 2 hours, which, number one, is not what we agreed to do, and number two, I didn't have 2 hours. I had a 3.5-hour drive ahead of me. I have spoken at over 100 Republican clubs and executive committees over the last 2.5 years, and I've never had anything like that happen to me before. I will go anywhere to give a speech, as long as folks work with our schedule, but unfortunately we're not willing to accommodate the return to our original agreement.
Stand up if you have a question, please.
You know that Florida has some special franchises in relation to the national government. One of those is NASA. Have you given any thought to the Presidential Study Commission and what the future of NASA will be?
Augustine Commission on NASA?
Yeah.
The NASA issue is quite frankly a funding issue. That is actually an essential and core American function of the federal government. And we don't have the money to do it, unfortunately, because we're spending it on all kinds of other things that the federal government should not be doing. The space program is critical for America's future for two reasons. Number one, safety and security. The Chinese are investing heavily in space militarization because they understand if you can knock out people's satellites, you can take apart the national defense. And the other reason is the commercial spin-off of things that are created from the space program. Every technology that emerges from space exploration has commercial applications. In fact, many of the, and it's not just Tang that you get from the movie stuff. I mean, there are other, the microwave oven and many other inventions and things that will make possible through military and space technological research. So the space program is critical, not just to Florida, but to our national defense and security.
Thank you for your speech today. It was great. You said something at the end that senators can't buy you a house, can't get you a job. And immediately I said, yeah, but they can get in the way of those things. What ideas do you have in Washington to help keep those senators and Congress out of our way so we can pursue those things?
Largely, it's defining the proper role of government, what government can and cannot do. And that's why we think there are pretty simple things we need to do. Meaningful tax reform in America is essential. And we have a growth. I personally support the fair tax. I think it's the ideal tax reform. At minimum, we need meaningful tax simplification that you can do at a flat rate on the back of a postcard. At a minimum, it has to be that. And the second thing we need is a balanced budget amendment or some constitutional budgetary protection that does not allow government to spend money it doesn't have. Any government, I don't care if it's a Republican or a Democrat in charge, any government that you allow to deficit spend will deficit spend. And we need a constitutional protection against that. Those two things alone will allow our country to begin to grow our economy once again at the kind of rate that will create the revenues we need to pay off this deficit. Yes, sir.
Yeah, you must have read my mind. I was going to ask you about the deficit, and there you are answering the question before I even had a chance to ask. One thing that does concern me...
I don't put that in the mailers, but I just have some slightly... I'm joking. I'm not...
Great press game. It was actually a two-part question. The second part, I'm going to be retiring in a few years.
Yeah.
And I'm really concerned about Social Security, where it is, and whether it's going to be around, and what can be done to preserve it moving forward.
It will be around for most of them. The problem with Social Security is it's a ticking time bomb and it self-destructs, just like Mission Impossible has been self-destruct for 45 years. It'll do that if we don't have significant reforms at some point. And it can't be, here's the problem. There are people that have been working now for 25 or 20 or 15 years with the promise of Social Security. I think that promise has to be kept. It's a contractual obligation our country has. But at some point we have to draw a line in the sand and tell Americans, for example, of my generation, that Social Security, if it's unreformed for you, will not survive. And I think those reforms have to happen. And there was a real effort, a bipartisan effort in America in the early 80s to save Social Security. I think it's time to have something like that happen again, where serious policymakers look at it and say, what will it take to have something like this? And I think part of that solution is to allow people to invest money on their own. As opposed to at least in my generation, I would rather have the option of investing my money on instead of having the government invest it for me. And I think it should be an option that Americans below a certain age at this point should have. Yes, sir.
Andrew Dorsey, President of the Tampa Bay Republicans. I want to thank you again for coming out this evening. What is your proudest moment as Florida Speaker of the House, and that should point to?
You know, I don't have a singular proud moment. I think in general, what I really enjoyed about the speakership is that our whole 2 years was about issues. I believe that politics is at its best when you can come to a common ground. This is what bipartisanship really is supposed to look like. We all agree on where we want to go. Now let's have a debate about the best way to get there. And we had that in the Florida House. Now, we all agree we wanted Florida to have better education. We wanted Florida to be safer. We wanted Florida to be more prosperous. We had some very different ideas about how to accomplish that. Luckily, we had the majority, and so we won more than we lost. But the point is that I was proud that that's what the Florida House was about in my 2 years. Look, I'll be frank, guys. I have a lot of friends that you would describe as liberal Democrats who are good people, whose principles are different than mine. I respect them because at least they have principles, but I think they're wrong about the direction they would take our country. In our republic, we have an opportunity to defeat them in the battlefield of ideas. We have the opportunity to defeat them in the battle of public policy. And I enjoy doing that in the Florida House. Not just defeating them, I mean winning is always good, but I enjoy being able to be a part of that because I truly believe that that's what this republic was designed to be. And that is a battlefield of ideas where people who share a common goal can debate about the best way to accomplish that goal. I have time for probably one more question, and then
what are your thoughts on immigration reform and protecting our borders?
I believe the Republican Party has allowed itself to be deemed as the anti-illegal immigration party. That's not what we are. We are the pro-legal immigration party. And we have a legal immigration system that's broken in America. You know why it's broken? If you can throw a 98-mile-per-hour fastball, you get in. If you can cure cancer, we won't let you in. It doesn't make any sense. We have to fix our legal immigration system, but we can't. We can't even begin to fix it because the American people don't trust us and are not going to trust the federal government until they fix the problem of illegal immigration. What is the problem of illegal immigration? It's two things. It's an uncontrolled border. We have no idea who's coming in and out, it's not just the janitor and the housekeeper that we're worried about. It's the guy with a nuclear device in the backpack. It's a national security problem. And the other issue with illegal immigration that is not talked about nearly enough is the visa program that we have. You know, a significant percentage of illegal aliens in America entered the country legally. Their visa expired and they stayed. And we've got to deal with that problem too. Some never intended to go back once they got here. So we've got to fix the illegal immigration problem first. And when the American people believe that the federal government is actually serious about enforcing our laws, then they will have the faith that they need in the American government to allow us to reform legal immigration in a way that allows legal immigration to once again be a positive for America. Now that leaves one problem on the table. And that is 11 million human beings in this country illegally and what to do about that. On the one hand, you cannot just round up and deport 11 million people in one fell swoop because we don't live in a police state. On the other hand, you cannot grant amnesty because if you grant amnesty, you will destroy any chance you have of having a legal system that works. Ronald Reagan tried amnesty in 1986 when it was 3 million people. And let me tell you what the net result of that was. In addition to growing to 11 million, there were people in line to enter legally who claimed that they were here illegally because it was easier to do the amnesty process than it was to do the legal process. So I believe that if you have a legal process that works, that has a guest worker program where people apply in their home country and get a tamper-proof card so we know who you are, you're here for a defined period of time and you can return. If we have that in America, then you won't have an illegal immigration problem for long. By attrition, people will leave because they won't be able to find jobs or services. So in my mind, that's the way to solve it. But we need to stop playing politics with it. Some people want to turn this into an election year tool. They want to use it to get more citizens registered because they think they'll vote for them. And that's not what immigration policy should be about. Legal immigration has been a great thing for America. We need to have a legal immigration process that works again. But before we can do that, we must fix the illegal immigration issues at the border and in the visa process.